We're speaking today with Jim Matheson from the Edmonton Journal, the Hockey Hall of Fame columnist for the Journal. We're going to talk about the Canucks game on Wednesday in Edmonton, where they visit the Oilers. Jim, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Jim. I get a little tired of seeing the Vancouver Canucks, as a matter of fact.
Well, this will be the third time in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, I suppose. But it's interesting. I know the last time we did one of these video previews a month ago, I was speaking with your cohort, Joanne Ireland, regarding the Oilers. And I had the same questions. The Oilers, of course, at that point were off to a winless start, real tough time. They went on a bit of a run after that, but now they're kind of back down, going the negative way again. Just tell me what's going on around the team. How's it playing in the fan base? Obviously very disappointing. Is Coach Dallas Eakins, what's his job security look like?
Well, the fan base is pretty anxious here. Last year they won like 4 of the first 20. This year they've played 18. They won 6, marginally better, but they're last in the conference. With 6 wins, 10 losses, and 2 loser points. So they're not making great progress. And the team's mantra is, it's all part of the process. Well, the process, if you're an Oiler fan, is to go to the games, and the team loses a whole lot more than they win, and they don't seem to be making any progress. So they're getting pretty antsy when they see the team down the road in Calgary, well over 500. Way more points than the Edmonton Oilers. On paper, less skill, work harder, and they're a Stanley Cup contender, if you can say that after a month, and the Oilers certainly aren't. So the fan base is not happy. Dallas Eakins, I would say, just his job is free for this season. Now, after the season, if the Oilers play as poorly as they did last year, that would be 2 years into the 4-year contract. I presume Craig MacTavish, who hired Dallas Eakins, could make a call then. But the Oilers really, as you know, Jim, have had so many different coaches, from Craig MacTavish, who got burned out, to Pat Quinn, to Tom Renney, to Ralph Kruger, to now Dallas Eakins. You can only have so many coaches, and then you say, well, maybe the players just aren't good enough either. So it's a vicious circle here. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. If you're an Oiler fan, it doesn't seem to be. And if you're covering the team, I'm becoming an angry old man covering this team.
Jimmy, let's talk about some individuals. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty to choose from, but when I sort of peruse some of the statistics around the team and look at some of the results, certainly a guy like David Perron comes to mind. 1 goal after I think a pretty good 28-goal season last year. Justin Schultz, a BC guy. Canucks tried to sign him big time. He decided to sign with the Oilers. He's not producing offense, and of course he's a guy that if he's not producing offense, that's a problem. So what's happening with these 2 guys, do you think?
Well, very interesting. Last year, as you pointed out, David Perron got 28 goals. The Oiler high in goals, 28. This year he's got 1, 18 games into it. And, players always talk about, well, they'll come out of a slump. But I think the longer you go in the National Hockey League, certainly in the first 5-6 weeks without scoring, it's not like you flip a switch and then suddenly you become a 30-goal scorer when you've only got 1. And his shooting percentage is barely above 2%, which is certainly, I don't know how many forwards have won that for. And he's a good person. He works hard, but the puck's not going in. We suggested yesterday to Dallas Eakins, how about some gravy time playing with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? Get a guy out of his slump. But last night, as the game wore on, Taylor Hall was back after missing 6 games with a sprained knee, and he was playing pretty much with Nugent-Hopkins and Jordan Eberle. So he's not getting the gravy time with the Oilers' best player. And Justin Schultz, I don't know if the fans here got, I wouldn't say sold a bill of goods, but he was the most coveted free agent player in years coming out of University of Wisconsin, and I think everybody figured he'd be Erik Karlsson, come in and be a 70-point NHL defenseman. He's far from that. He still looks like he's got some offensive tools, but his point production is not what the fans were hoping for, and perhaps the management as well. He plays a lot of minutes. He plays the most minutes of all the defensemen, but the points aren't there. And the overall Oiler defense, they have 21 points as an Oiler defense. Mark Giordano in Calgary has 21 points by himself. So if Oiler forwards are struggling, there's no backup from the defenseman led by Justin Schultz to give him offense. So it's, I come back to the same vicious circle here. There's so many holes on this team right now at 6-10-2 that I'm not sure where they can dig out. And they lost the first 5 games and they won the next 4. And then they lose 4, they win a couple, and lose a couple. Now they've lost 3. There hasn't been one stretch where you win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. When they're losing, they lose a lot, and when they're winning, they win a lot.
Jim, one last question for you. Obviously, the Canucks are coming in. The Canucks are coming off a 5-0 loss to Arizona on Friday. They've been off for a few days, giving them lots of time to think about it. Is this an opportunity for the Oilers to maybe jump on a team, or is it? I mean, the Canucks. You'd like to think they're going to have some bounce back off this game, but I mean, how do you think the Oilers are approaching the Canucks coming in?
Familiarity breeds contempt, I'm sure. The last exhibition game was also against the Vancouver Canucks. The second game of the league season was against the Canucks. This will be the 3rd home game against the Canucks. I think they lost 2-0 empty net, 3-2 last game when Derek Dorsett scored that goal off the Ben Scrivens giveaway, and now they're playing him again on Wednesday. So they're looking at it like certainly they should be able to beat the Canucks one time. It's not like they're playing the LA Kings here, but they just can't win a game against Vancouver. And the more times that Vancouver wins a game, the more times they think they're going to beat them every time. And the first game was high scoring in Vancouver, tremendous game for offense. Oilers up 4-2, 2-0, 4-2, and lost in a shootout 5-4. The last 2 games have been much tighter defensively. The Oilers can't score, just 2 goals in those 2 games. So they have to start beating somebody in their own conference, never mind their own division. They're 0-8-1 against teams in their own conference, and the lone point was against the Canucks in the shootout. So 50 games against teams in your own conference, and you better start winning some of them. And I would suspect the focal point Wednesday will be Zach Kassian, who wasn't happy getting hit by Andrew Ferentz last game. Ferentz got a 3-game suspension. And the Oilers don't like Kassian, and he doesn't like them much either. So, apart from the usual, can the Oilers stop the Sedins? That's probably the storyline.
Great. Thanks very much, Jim. Appreciate your insights. Jim Matheson from the Edmonton Journal.
My pleasure.